Hi, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Katrina Jefferson, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Partnerships at EnCorps. Recently, we launched our EnCorps Spotlight blog and newsletter feature. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, it is EnCorps Go, and you will see it on the homepage of our website. Today, we're recording our first episode of the EnCorps Echo series. Welcome to the EnCorps Echo. Here we'll chat with tutors, parents, STEM professionals, and teachers about their career path to teaching. Let's get started with Kathy Kostrzewa. I'm saying this correctly?
You are saying it correctly.
Okay. I'm so glad
Thank
we're able
you.
to, of course. I'm so glad we're able to connect today and talk about all of your experience in teaching and otherwise. I know you've been a supporter for years, and I value your time and experience. Even when I first came to the team, looking at everyone's resume and what they've done, I was so impressed with some of the things you've done in your career.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so, Kathy, it's clear you're someone who truly cares about the students. I feel like all of the EnCorps staff, that's a common characteristic that I see with all of us. Like we really do care about students, and we always tend to do things that are for the at the student's advantage. Um, so I'll get to my first question. Kathy, how long have you been in the STEM industry? So specifically, tell us about your background before joining EnCorps, including your career and volunteer work.
Oh, okay. So I started formally working in the STEM industry in 1979.
Okay,
It's been a
wow.
long time.
Yeah.
And I got I got a bachelor's in math, and I worked for a while, got married, stopped my career to have two children. And while the kids were very young, I was lucky to receive a full fellowship to get my master's and I decided to go into computer science at that time, which many of the universities back in the late 70s only had master's degree in computer science. They really didn't have a bachelor's degree yet. So I got my master's degree in computer science, and I started working at a pharmaceutical company in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I started out as a Fortran programmer. So we never called them coders, we were programmers. Um, and that only lasted for a little bit of time because I wasn't one who liked to sit just behind a computer and do
Yeah.
programming. I was one more that wanted to be working with people also.
Yeah.
So every time, and you think in the 80s when all we had was mainframes and some mini computers, but there were no, desktops, everything, all the green screen terminals were, connected to the mainframe. Um, there everything changed.
Yeah.
Like every 2 years, I got a different job because, it was like something new came in and somebody said, "Who wants to do this?" And I raised my hand and said, I don't know
Now,
why, but I like change. I just raised my hand and said, I will do this. So I did almost every type of job in
now,
IT.
Kathy, I was going to ask you now with that and having done all these different jobs, I bet you were one of few women. Can you tell us like how many women at that time were in that industry and modeling that same behavior? Because, as we know, even now, like people are either afraid to go higher or they don't, something prevents them from moving up a level. So can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Well, like when I went and I was doing my master's, I still remember Janet. She was the only other female in any of my classes.
Wow.
Western Michigan. So I graduated from Western Michigan in my
Okay.
master's. Okay. And I was, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time. And now the 4-year-old is almost 50.
Wow.
She says, "Oh yeah, Mom, I remember when you used to take us to Rood Hall in Everett Tower, and because you had a bug in your program, and you had to go."
Wow.
It was very few. And then even when I started working, and I was in the medical division in the IT part of it, and then gradually went into, a higher role. I can remember specifically being when I reached director role, I was the only female. And
It's so, and
most, once director and above, I was a VP, and I was the only female. And I can remember, yeah, I don't know. I'm a kind of an emotional person, but I can remember leaving the director meetings and going home, driving my car home and crying
well,
because
yeah.
I thought I am like, I don't get these guys. They would not talk right about our administrative assistants, who I like thought, oh my God, I can't live without our administrative assistants. You know,
Exactly.
I just had a different mindset. I just,
Exactly. And that's what I was going to ask is that, not only being a woman in that industry that was male dominant at that time and still is primarily male, but also being a caregiver, like that, being a parent. I mean, it's different than where it is now. Like, look at me working remotely and having the flexibility to get your kids and be close to them. So it was very different at that time too, with that as well.
yeah. And I have to say, I'm the luckiest gal in the world because I have a husband who has always supported me. We just celebrated our 50th wedding
Oh,
anniversary. And
congratulations.
I tell you, we've worked hard together to, make sure we both were, I mean, he helped me so much. Like, at one point in my career, or the job that was presented to me, moved to England. And I told my husband, no, I'm not moving to England with you being in, Michigan. I'm not gonna do that. I don't want a long distance relationship. And he goes, I'll quit. I'll move with you. And he did. And so
I
that was the late
love
90s when that
that.
happened. And he was like the only male, expat
Kathy,
spouse.
your husband, that's goals. Okay. Just like can I just say that is goals. Like that is the strongest form of support to just say, hey, let's just go do it. And then
Yeah,
we
because
can
he goes, I know this because we were merging, pharmaceuticals were merging, and we were merging with a Swedish pharmaceutical, and they put the headquarters in Windsor, England. And we lived in Ascot, and the kids at that time had, all both graduated from high school and were in
oh,
college, so the kids didn't move with us. But I mean, I look back on that, and yeah, he said, oh, this is the greatest opportunity for you. This is great. This is your career, and,
absolutely.
like, we got to do it. And HR even tried to talk me out of it. Said, what? Your husband's going to quit his job? What? Did you really think about this, Kathy? And I go, well, yeah, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. But they were trying to talk me out of it. But it really worked out because eventually then we got to New York. My career just soared off and I became a VP, left the pharmaceutical, went into Avon Products for another 20 years, with them. And yeah, and then
That is amazing. So I love hearing that story.
it
I
was,
mean, it just the passion and the energy and the drive behind it was all of there. So then my next question is what led you to teaching? So how did that start?
okay.
Like
Yeah,
what
well,
was the pivotal moment?
yeah, that's a good question because I in high school was always good in math. And my mother told me back then that, okay, so this was in the, I graduated high school in the 60s. And when all the girls were taking home ec and they were taking typing, because most of the girls who graduated from my school during the 60s, you either, you know, graduated high school, got married, or you went, if you did go to get a job, you were a secretary. So everybody took typing. All the girls took typing and and home ec. And my mother said, no, you are good in math and science. You are going to college.
I love it.
And in high school, I always tutored my friends in math because, again, I was about the only girl who took the advanced math classes, you know, in high school. And I went to, and I got my bachelor's in math because I was going to be a math teacher. I wanted to be a high school math teacher because I loved high school. I was in everything. I loved high school.
That was me too. That's so funny. Shout out to your mom, first of all. I have to say this for encouraging you to just take that track and just go the math route. Like,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Except my mom told me not to take typing. That hasn't, because I went into computer science. That did me no good. That didn't do me any good. I'm a pecker.
Well,
But
hey, math, typing,
yeah.
you know.
So anyway, so my teaching, I didn't go into teaching after I graduated because I did student teaching. I had a really bad student teaching experience, a real discipline problem. The teacher that I, that was my, teacher that I taught with, she wouldn't leave me alone in the classroom. The kids were just really bad. At that time, it was bad. It's probably it might be normal now.
Yeah.
For the classroom. But I would, again, walk home after student teaching, just crying, walk back to my dorm. I was crying. I said, I can't teach. This is like, and I was a young 21-year-old. I'd come from a very small farming community, so I went into the corporate world right away. And, then when I started working and leading teams and being a manager, and that was like my form of teaching, working with, and I had several admins who were, because we would call them, we called the admin secretaries used to, and then, the word went to administrative assistant. And several of mine wanted to go to school while they wanted to go get their college, their bachelor's degree while they were working. And I, back then, said, yeah, we're going to go for that. You do that, you do a good job here, I will help work around your schedule. And that was kind of unheard of back in those days. But yeah, I had two of my admins who went on to get, college degrees.
Wow.
And so that was, so I always thought that. And then, when I retired, I started, I couldn't just retire. My daughters say, Mom, when are you retiring? So I started working for nonprofit. And then when I got out here to California, I moved from the East Coast to California to be near my granddaughter. Then I got hooked up with EnCorps, which is right up my alley.
That's so perfect.
STEM teachers, recruiting STEM professionals. And I had always liked, women in STEM, and I had led girls in STEM, groups and things like that. So then when and let me know if I'm going on and on too much here.
Oh, so
But
not at all. Not at all. I mean, this is all inspirational, and especially the fact that you inspired admins to change their trajectory and do something different. I feel like that's very inspiring. What advice would you give someone who wants to begin their career in education? Just with all the experience that you've had.
That's a good question. I think, as long as you're going into it with the right motivation to help, to really help the students, and your focus is on the students, because I think being a teacher is really difficult. And I never became an in-classroom teacher. I'm a tutor,
Mhm. Mhm.
so so I never have taught in the classroom.
Mhm.
But I think it is a very difficult job, but can be the most rewarding job you could
Mhm.
ever have, is to
Mhm.
touch a young person's life.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
uh, yeah, I've felt that so much just with the tutoring I've done.
that's what I was going to say is I feel like that's exactly what you've been doing with tutoring. I mean, to me, tutoring is teaching because you're essentially having to follow up on lessons and, give instruction and so even though it's not a technical term for a teacher, I feel like you are doing a form of teaching there. And so that to me, it's so great. And how long have you been an encore tutor?
I have been an encore tutor. This is my 5th year.
That's
And
so awesome.
I started out with uh, one student the first year, and Jennifer is her name. She's 6th grade. It was during COVID when we started the tutors program in EnCorps. And she was so timid and shy. And I had never tutored before or taught but our program director, Angel, said, "Come on, Kathy, you can do this. You can do this." I go, "I don't know if I can do it. I know the math, but I don't know." And it was all virtual. And Angel said, "Come on, Kathy." She kept saying. So I was one of the first tutors, and
Uh-huh.
I was assigned a 6th grade girl, very shy,
Awesome.
very not confident at all. So, had difficulty with multiplication,
Mm.
very behind. Um, and I just focused on the first thing I focused on was, well, I got to establish a relationship with her. I got to, really work on the relationship
That's
piece.
really key when you're connecting with the students, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just really, doing everything possible. I was doing everything possible to make her feel like she was making progress at the
Mhm.
beginning. And I've been with her 5 years. And she, in the beginning, I would say for the first 2 years, whenever she would give me what she thought was the answer, I'd say, "Well, Jennifer, what's the answer?" She would do this upspeak, like if the answer was 10, she'd go 10. Like,
To like questioning yourself. Hmm.
yeah, she questioned herself. It
Hmm.
took it took almost 2 years for her to be able to answer to say her answer with a confidence in her voice.
Hmm.
And I didn't at the beginning point that out at all. But into the second
No.
year, I said, "Jennifer, you're always answering with, like you're not confident. That's the right answer." I said, "For the most part, you get them all right. Like, answer it with confidence. You can do this." So we started working on that. And can I describe what happened to me last night with her?
Please.
Oh, this was like, so we had a session last night. I had no idea exactly what, she didn't send me ahead of time. She's now a sophomore and she's taking algebra 2 and geometry, 2 math classes.
Wow.
And so I wasn't really prepared for what are we going to talk about? Well, what she had her assignment was all about graphing out a polynomial function. So taking just the function and then graphing it, creating the graph for it. So there's
Mhm.
many steps to do that.
Mhm.
I had no idea how to do it. This is now
Uh-huh.
beyond it's not 6th, 7th, or 8th grade math. It's
Right?
more difficult. I don't remember it. I go, "Jennifer, okay, Now, let's go through this. What did you write down? How did you do this one in class? We went through every step. She explained it to me. She goes, well, I should have written this a little different, but this is what we did. And by the end of it and me asking her questions, we got all of her problems done by her telling me how to do it. And I said, Jennifer, do you know you just taught me, how to do this,
Mm.
how to create a graph from the polynomial function for the polynomial function. I said, we just reversed roles.
That is the power of questions. Like asking questions helps you really get to the bottom of anything. I mean, it helps you get to the root of it. And I think that's what you did for her. Like you helped her get to reasoning by answering a series of questions so that she was able to come to her own conclusion and
Yeah.
teach everyone what it was. Well,
Yeah.
that
And
is
I said,
really inspiring.
yeah, I said, oh my God, I came into this. I go, I didn't feel prepared. And Jennifer, I always like to feel prepared. So I'm uncomfortable, but let's go through this. We're going to get through this. And we did. And by the end, we were, laughing. And I said, oh my God, you just taught me, you taught me the math concept instead of me teaching you.
Right. Well, I mean, Kathy, and that's something that I feel like we get that when we tutor kids or even teach kids. They teach us so much, right? Like they teach us so much. I feel like even my experience within teaching and subbing and all the different types of programming I've run, it's like I always learn more from just being inside of the classroom. Well,
And
I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope that you're inspired out there to learn more about EnCorps programs, to share your teaching journey. You can email us at info@encore.org. And for additional information on EnCorps programming and how to apply, just visit encore.org. That's EnCorps.org. And follow us on social at EnCorps STEM Teachers. Thank you so much. Bye.
hi.